and welcome to Suffragette City Radio. It's me, Sobering Maid.
And me, DJ Lippy.
Today, we are bringing to you the rad femme analysis of Brexit that no one wanted.
I don't want this.
Or asked for.
Nobody asked for this. We have to talk about this forever now.
But we're doing it. But before we get to it, what have you been up to this month?
I've been, again, I'm just activist. So I've been... I went on a away weekend with some fabulous women, and they taught me a lot more about how to do activism.
Oh yeah, I've not actually chatted to you about this. How was it? What's the headlines?
I need to think, like, basically I'm just like, bomb the dams, do this, do that, just quick, do this thing, right, now do this thing over here, now do that thing over there. And it's like, what is your strategy? What is your aim? What are your goals? What are you achieving by this? And I'm like, I don't know, just...
Feels good. Yeah.
And it's like, actually think more about what, you know, if you're going to do an action or you want to stop something, think about what it is you're trying to do and how you're going to do it, what the success look like, how you're going to measure it, how you're going to plan it. And it's good, but it's like, fucking hell. Like, I'm starting to think like, okay, like list of power brokers. How do I map who's the power brokers in the Northwest? And it's even things like, okay, like, I say I wanted to stop a policy, like I want to get rid of single-sex toilets. And I'm going to try, and that's like my campaign got, I want to get rid of mixed-sex toilets. I want it to go back to single-sex.
Yeah.
It's like, who makes that decision? Who makes that decision? Who is it? Do I write to Andy Burnham? He's not going to have any control over that. Like, on what national framework is that person going to be? You know, that where are the decision makers? How are decisions made in the country? I haven't got a fucking clue.
Yeah.
I'm not a lobbyist, so. But it's like, you need to be a lobbyist if you want to be a good campaign. You know, a good activist. You think of activists as being like a bit smelly hippie types. You know what I mean? Sitting in the road and that. Yeah. But there's a lot more than just that. Like, you can do that, or you can also be like smart kid and go to like the right meetings and just network with people. So it's finding out where I need to go, who I need to know. If
you want to make change, you got to find out who the change makers are.
Yeah. But yeah, that was good. And now I'm planning. You know, like last month we did the Extinction Rebellion Green.
Oh yeah.
And we just slagged it all off. And like, they're planning a coup.
But we did actually go to a meeting. Like, was it last week or week before?
Yeah, we went to a meeting.
Yeah, we went down.
Yeah, I took you for your first meeting. How did you find it?
It was fine. It was what I expected.
Yeah. Pretty
much. It was large, a lot of people there, but I think they said at the time that they were like, there was a lot of people that they were surprised to see, and there was a documentary crew as well. I think they're doing something for Channel 5, they said. So keep your eyes peeled for an Extinction Rebellion doc on Channel 5.
But after all that, I've decided that I'm going to go down for the rebellion.
Cool. They were in the news actually just today. Yeah. The day that we're recording this, we're releasing it later, but today, blood on the Treasury, I think it was. They sprayed loads of blood on the Treasury and said, like, stop funding climate change. Yeah,
they're a bit theatrical, aren't they? I mean,
I kind of like that about them, though.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, they're smart kids, and I'm really excited to go down and learn how they do it. Do you know what I mean? How to mass mobilise people. I met one of the women there. She's one of the activists, and she's like literally like the getting arrested type, like the proper types. Like, and I'm like, oh, cool. You're really cool. It's gonna be really cool. But I'm also trying not to get arrested. I'm like, that's my red line. I'm like, don't want to get arrested. And everyone's like, right, what I'm planning? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to get arrested. I know me. Something's going to happen. I'm going to say the wrong thing. But by the time this goes out, I'll probably be back from Extinction Rebellion. So
now you've been a cold, hard sell.
But I mean, it worked for the suffragettes. It's like mass civil disobedience. If you clog up the courts and the prison systems with people, then it's a problem for them. Yeah. So, it's a good tactic, but you have to rely on a lot of people doing it. If just one person like goes to jail, like you just got a criminal record now, haven't you?
And there's lots of people who can't for whatever reasons, like single parents, people,
teachers, nurses. Exactly. If you've got a job, like, you can't go to jail, can you?
Yeah.
Immigrants. If you go to jail and you're not got leave to remain, then they're just gonna
turfed
deport you,
out.
aren't they?
Yeah.
What have you been up to?
Not a whole lot. I hadn't been up to a whole lot last month as well. I feel a bit bad. I mean, not a whole lot. Have I done anything majorly feministy?
Did some graffiti.
I did do some graffiti
in a toilet. That's feministy, isn't it?
No, I've just been... a couple of pregnancy documentaries I've been working on actually aired last week as well.
Cool.
So
what's the name of them for people can watch?
The Highland Midwife on Channel 5, or Teen Mom UK on MTV. But yeah, I've just been as always trying to connect to women. I've been having loads of really good actually one-to-one discussions on different feminist things with different colleagues as well, and that's been really nice. So, you know, maybe I've not been doing any big stunts, but I'm just trying to speak to other women and engage with other women, because I think one of the greatest tricks of patriarchy pulls is to pit women against each other.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's so much joy in sisterhood and finding common ground. So I'm just trying to do a bit of that, I suppose.
Cool.
Because
we forgot the really important thing that we've
that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Our big news is save the date for 30th of November, because
Detransition, the elephant in the room.
We are hosting another event. It's the launch of the Detransition Advocacy Network. It's going to be in a location in Manchester on the 30th of November. So save the date. That's a Saturday. We've yet to confirm times, but it won't be too late. So if you have childcare issues, you're not going to be back too late at all. And we have a little after party afterwards, as ever.
Of course, we've got an after party.
Because that's the best bit, networking with people.
Networking, that's what they're calling it, isn't it?
Networking over, yeah.
Vodka network.
So save the date. More details TBC.
I mean, basically, we're going to have, not to give too much away, but we're going to have some professionals speaking about the issue of detransition and the way that transgender healthcare works in the UK. And then we're going to have a panel of detransitioned women. So these are women who have tried to transition to the opposite sex because they have gender dysphoria, which is like severely debilitating. And they've realised that either the transition was making them worse or it just wasn't working. So they've had to sort of go back, as it were. And there's literally no support. They're just ignored, and they're not. And obviously, they still have all of the same issues that they had previous to that. Nothing's changed. It's just now they have no support and no way to cope with it. So we really need to figure out a way to help these women, because you know, people have a lot of sympathy for transgender people because of all the problems they have with their body image and their sense of self, but I don't feel like we extend that to these people, even though they have exactly the same issues as any other transgender person.
But now they don't fit the convenient little box, so they get ignored a little bit. Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, come along. Tickets are available on Eventbrite. You can, they're on our social media, on our Instagram, on our Facebook. I'm tweeting. You can't tweet because you're banned.
I'm banned forever. Just if you go on Eventbrite, Detransition, the elephant in the room,
and we'll put a link on our blog as well on our website.
Yeah, cool.
Today we're talking about Brexit. So from one heavy and hardy topic to another. So we're talking about Brexit and its effect on women and the sort of misogyny and the rhetoric around Brexit as well. So for our international listeners, of which I believe we have 2, so that makes 4 listeners now. Jean and Karen.
Hi Jean, hi Karen.
Your mum and my mum.
Yeah.
So the UK is part of the European Union, which is a political and economic union made up of 28 member states. Now, the first referendum for the UK to join the EU was in 1975, and the UK voted to join the EU in 1975. So the EU started after the Second World War because it was thought that countries that had linked trade policies were less likely to go to war with each other, and it's been proved true.
Well, that was the last war. I think it was like this trade war between France and Germany got out of hand because they were competing with each other for the same markets, same products. So.
Yeah.
Just like, you produce that thing and I'll produce this thing, and we're not going to row about it, are we?
Yeah. And like soft power leads to bigger power, you know, cultural exchanges and monetary exchanges mean you're less likely to pick up arms to go to war with each other. And on the 23rd of June 2016, the UK voted in another referendum if we wanted to leave the EU, and more people who voted to leave than to remain.
It was 52-48.
I think, very good. About 30 million people turn out to vote. So that was a voter turnout of 71.8% of eligible people to vote in the UK. And so then we've had 3 years of bullshit essentially, whilst we're trying to work out how to leave. Now, we just thought it'd be interesting to kind of break down. We're not going to tell you what is going on Brexit, because I mean, I don't even know if you know. I
don't watch it anymore.
I've got Brexit fatigue.
I'm so sick of it. It's like Groundhog Day. Every day you wake up and Boris Johnson now is there and he's being a tin pot fascist. Did I tell you my sex dream? I had a sex dream about him because he's always on. It was on the radio when I woke up, and I had Savage Javid and Boris Johnson in my subconscious. I need it to stop. We need to stop all of this.
That is the worst outcome of all this Brexit stuff. Sex dreams about Boris Johnson and Savage Javid.
I shouldn't have told everybody this. I'm a very bad feminist, but I can't control that. That was Brexit done that.
But yeah, we thought we would talk about rather than the policies and votes and who's done this and who's done what. We would just talk more generally about how it's affecting women. So yeah, I did a piece on the website a couple of months ago about how the EU has been good for women and how it's maybe not been so good for women, how remaining would be good for women or bad for women, and how leaving would be good for women or bad for women. And I just wanted to talk a bit generally about the makeup of like the voters as well, because there's kind of a lot of really unhelpful rhetoric in the media about it.
Traitors,
yeah,
Ramonas, and Remainers, Brexiteers are idiots, and Ramonas are elitist, traitor.
Yeah.
Like neither side comes off very well in this discourse, really, do they?
No. But I've got a little list of policies that the EU has done, which are quite good. So in 1993, the EU enacted a piece of legislation called the EU Pregnant Workers Directive, which it means that it ensures the health and safety at work of pregnant women and new mothers. And the UK employers must now give pregnant employees the option of parental leave and provide for paid time off for antenatal appointments during working hours.
Well, that's good, isn't it?
That's good.
Yeah.
Equal pay is enshrined in EU law as well, and the EU prohibits discrimination against carers due to their career status. Due to their carer status or relationship to a disabled person.
Well, this is all sort of gender neutral, but you can tell how I think
women are more likely to be carers.
Well, 4 times more likely to be carers than men if some family member gets sick. So it's impacting women, isn't it?
The EU has provided over 8 billion in funding towards UK women-led projects over the past 10 years, such as the Leicester Business Women Network and the Women's International Centre for Economic Development in Liverpool. So they're quite cool things. Women tend to use the NHS more than men due to longer life expectancy and maternity healthcare, which makes sense.
Yeah.
So the NHS has a large proportion of EU migrants working there, and in anticipation of a no-deal Brexit, many workers have actually left the NHS. So I think in 2017, the number of EU nationals leaving the NHS jumped by 14%. So 40% more than
so
the
there's going to be
year.
A care gap in terms of what provision is available for people. Well, I wonder who's going to pick up that slack, eh?
Yeah, but I think it's worth talking about. So the EU has done all these great things for women, but I wonder, would the UK have done those things already? I like to think that maybe we would have, that it's not just the EU is telling us off, because I think we shouldn't put ourselves down too much. But
well, I think it's really interesting if you look at every single piece of equality legislation that's ever been passed in the UK. Most pieces of health and safety legislation, it's always been under a Labour government. The Tories never pass. I think they passed the Equality Act, but
2010,
but that was a Labour policy. It was just as they got in, and actually they changed it to make it more Toryfied. They took out class as a protected characteristic.
Oh yeah,
it was initially there. But yeah, I was doing it. I've done it quite a lot of work because of my background. Is you always have to do like statutory equality training.
Yeah.
But when you look at all the laws and pass, and when it passes, it's always a Labour government who passed this. And I feel like maybe the left doesn't work as hard as it should do, because the EU's sort of almost like backing up all the time. You know what I mean? And the Tories can't. You can't trust the Tories to do anything for anybody that isn't, a rich white man sort of thing. So.
When you said that, I thought immediately, but they pass same-sex marriage. But then I'm like, oh, but gay men can be rich as well and get to be part of the establishment in terms of marriage now as well. Yeah.
So I don't know. I have thought of this, and I know that that's a lot of the Lexits, so left-wing Brexiteers often say, we can do this as a country. The left needs to be stronger, and it does need to own responsibility for some of the stuff, but. Have you seen the British left?
I know. Well, I was going to come to that actually, that it's not as easy. So there's a lot of rhetoric in the media, and I don't know how this plays to international listeners or viewers or people who are interested in Brexit debate, but there's a lot of rhetoric like that the right-wing racists voted to leave, and if you were left and liberal you voted to remain. Now in some of the voter breakdown, you know, if you were university educated you're more likely to vote remain and things like that, but a lot of old school leftists did vote to leave, like, and they've got good decent arguments.
Well, it's sort of almost like a new world order thing, isn't it? They're not happy with corporate. It's like it's a very corporate thing, the EU. We make out like it's this great liberal haven, but
it's not. So the EU has porous borders, which allows the free movement of goods and people, but really that just increases the profit for the multinational corporations. I mean, like, I've benefited from freedom of movement. That's really nice.
It's freedom of movement and freedom of capital, isn't it? As well, though? So they can take the money out of poor countries into richer countries, and which is what's happening if you look at countries like
well, you go
in
to
Eastern Europe,
go to Romania in some rural villages. There's no one there
decimated,
between the ages of 18 and 45.
Yeah, no, it is. It's like almost like it happens on a scale like in the UK. It happens in all rural areas. They all go into the cities. It's almost like taking that principle and applying it to a continent, and it wreaks havoc in those places that don't have immigration. Ironically enough, the Brits always. Well, not every Brits, but, you know, we moan on about immigrants coming in and taking our jobs. The day that immigrants stop coming and taking our jobs,
we'll be sorry.
We'll have to go over there and take their jobs.
Well,
do you know what I mean? Like,
there'll be people leaving the UK for sure. Like, we're supposed to be, the EU is supposed to be like an equal footing member states, all of this, but a lot of money, a lot of capital, and a lot of people and labour are being funneled into the rich countries, UK, France, Germany and Spain, and the poorer countries are just being left out, you know, in the cold. They've got a dearth of young people, young professionals, young bright new minds in places like Romania and Bulgaria. But you know, that's not to say that maybe leaving is the best option, but this is what I'm trying to get at with this. It's a lot more of a nuanced debate, but but I also had a look at how the EU is potentially failing women. So we just mentioned the porous borders, but that basically means that the EU has a huge problem with human trafficking, and women are more likely to be trafficked, and they're getting trafficked to pro-prostitution countries like Germany and Holland,
Spain.
Yeah, because when you decriminalise or legalise prostitution, all you do really is destigmatise the right of men to buy access to women's bodies. Now, you've done that, so that increases demands because it's legal now, so men want to buy access to women's bodies. You've got an increased demand there, but you don't all of a sudden have loads of women going to their careers day and going, I want to be a prostituted woman. So then you have to fulfil that demand that has now been created. And how do you do that? You traffic women. And so there's a real problem with trafficking women and kids as well.
Is this the EU's fault, though? I mean,
it's not the EU's fault, but they turn a blind eye.
I mean, there's a lot of work, the Nordic model, and a lot of feminists can work together within the EU. Like, if you could pass a law, you could introduce the Nordic model as standard in Europe, and it would put pressure on other countries to introduce that.
Well, I think that's interesting.
In that sense, is it better to be in a system and fight for changes?
Yeah.
On a not national, like, it's not international, it's continental.
Yeah, within this fight for change within the system, then yeah. That's a really good point, actually. And the EU says, or it has passed some sort of legislation or some sort of aim that it is against the full legalization of prostitution. However, countries and leading countries like Germany's like one of the massive players in the EU, have passed, like, they're kind of given carte blanche to be pro-prostitution.
Well, aren't they having second thoughts after all the problems with mega brothels and things like that? Like, I've heard something that, you know, like the Nordic model that comes from countries where they traditionally were like, yep, it's fine, very very liberal, but then they were like, oh fucking hell, like, you know what I mean? And then that's where the system comes from, because they realised the problems with just unregulated pimps, basically. So I don't know, like I don't think leaving the EU will make any of this better for us, will it? I mean, if anything, what you're going to have with the island of Ireland, I don't know why they keep calling it that, in the Northern Ireland now, they're talking about they can't really work out a solution for
the border,
and that's going to become a haven for smuggling.
I bet, yeah.
And I don't know if people are going to be included in this.
Well, probably,
but, you know, put criminals in an area. I mean, why would you put a load of criminal gangs in Northern Ireland. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, people. Like, they haven't got a functioning government. They've got terrorists bombing things all the time now.
Yeah.
Let's just chuck a load of drug money there. Let's put cartels there now.
Wasn't I actually heard in the news there was like a boat that was stopped off the coast of Ireland or something, had loads of cocaine. I could have made that up. It was off the coast of the UK. It wasn't far, and it had like loads of cocaine. I'm almost certain it was Ireland.
It surprised me.
But yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I take your point. I don't think that leaving the EU would necessarily solve this, but I find the rhetoric frustrating where it's like, we must remain, and no one's kind of critically looking at how the EU has failed women, and it is failing women in some aspects. But I take your point, not leaving the EU isn't necessarily going to solve all of this, but I think we need to shine a light on the EU's problems and not pretend that it doesn't have problems. There's also the issue of child trafficking, and there was a report that there's children that are passing through as many as 8 EU countries, because they're all just turning a blind eye to it, because they don't want it costs money to process refugees and process children that have been trafficked, so they don't want to bother. So you've got porous border, it could be the next country's problem. So that is a problem with the EU as well. And also the EU, in an effort to decrease migration, now I think the EU is actually a little bit, some argue that the EU could be a bit of a racist endeavour because it prioritises immigration from white countries and doesn't like immigration from, and obviously there are black and minority ethnic people within the EU, but they're majority white countries, and it's in a bid to curb migration from places like North Africa, the EU has funneled money into North African governments, different institutions such as the Libyan Coast Guard, and in some cases the militia. The EU gave money to Moroccan militia so that they paid them to stop people crossing into the EU from Morocco, because they didn't want to have to deal with it at their end, so they funneled money into the other end, the North African end, to stop it. Now, can you guess what happened when the EU gave money to the militia?
Did they do something bad with it?
Yeah, they did, and they trafficked men, women and children, because they would say, a migrant who wants a better life would, go to the Moroccan coast, try and go to the EU. The militia would go, no, you can't, I've got to stop you, no, you can't. Well, if you gave me money, I could get you in. And then
so they've basically set themselves up as like the go-between, so it's increasing the gangs who are doing all the trafficking, giving the gangs more power. Yeah,
exactly. And then they're trafficking these women and men who are like, yeah, I want to, I'll give you some money if you can get me on the boat, and then they're just trafficked into labour or into prostitution, and they're basically getting paid twice by the EU, and the EU's turning a blind eye to it because it solved their problem for them a little bit. So yeah, but this is that I was just thinking about how the EU has been good for women and bad for women, and I don't know, are we allowed to say how we feel politically on this, or should we try and remain politically neutral?
Well, I mean, I actually said I was a Remainer, but I didn't actually vote.
Did you not?
Well, no, I was living in Budapest.
Oh yeah, you were.
So that's my get out of jail free card. So I was away for the vote. But I would have voted Remain, and I was very angry about what had happened, because I felt like it was taking something away from me for the ability to travel and work elsewhere. And I just like the idea of Europe, But as time's gone on, I've realised like a lot of my not love of Europe, but a lot of my reasons for feeling the way that I did about Brexit is because a lot of the people who bang on about Brexit are all from the right wing of the Tory party.
Yes.
So it's almost like a tribalism, like, well, whatever they want, I want the opposite. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there is a lot of racism around the debate, which makes me feel very uncomfortable.
For sure.
But now I've seen it the other side. I've seen the way that people are talking about it. I've seen the way it's tearing up families and friendship groups, and I just, maybe we should leave. If that's what the vote was, maybe we should just do it. And it's not great, but we should just get on with it. But
I think there'd be riots in the street if we didn't.
Oh, to be honest, I don't care. There's so many things that are in crisis with this country that we're not allowed to talk about. And we're just going to talk about Brexit, but we're not going to get anywhere. There's no way out of this malaise, because if we have a second vote, then people will say this is not democratic. If we don't have a vote, but we leave without a deal, then it's going to be chaos. And then the other half will always blame the other side. I just cannot see this resolving, because both sides are entrenched now, and
it sucked all the oxygen out of the room. We can't talk about anything else.
Yeah, but everything else is going bad. Everything else is going really bad, and I don't know. I just feel like
The domestic abuse bill, wasn't that pushed back or something?
Yeah, because they didn't have enough time in Parliament. Well, it was because Johnson decided to prorogue it, which, you know, and I actually just think that democracy is dying now. I think it's actually dead. I think the way they started to get the judges involved with legislating the Parliament, like, that's dangerous territory here. We're basically screwed as a country.
Come visit, because we'll need tourism when we leave the EU.
Well, you can come and see the Queen. She's good. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm being pessimistic. I feel like most people are sick of Brexit. But when you ask them, like, do you want to should we just call it off? Then they're like, no. Or if you ask the other side, you know, should we leave? They're like, of course not. And you're like, well, if you don't want to talk about it, can we not just flip a coin? Because
it would be more use than these politicians at this point.
This is the thing. The thing that pisses me off, though, as well, is that a lot of the sides, they talk about it as like the will of the people. Yeah. It's a very fascist phrase, the will of the people, when it was only 52% of the population. So in no sense is that the will of the people. That's the just edging it of the people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and in Scotland as well, it was something like 34% voted to leave, but the rest voted to remain.
Well, we're going to destroy the union. We're going to just be England and Wales, and then Wales are going to leave.
Yeah.
It's just going to be England sitting around stewing about.
I think that would be problematic for Scotland, though, as well, because, more people voted to remain than to leave, but that's still 34%. That's 1 in 3 people, like, that still wanted to leave. Like, in Scotland, it's not as clear. It wasn't like, Remain won in Scotland, but a lot of people in Scotland wanted to leave. 1/3 of the voters in Scotland wanted to leave. That is a big amount. I just don't think it's... But Nigel Farage, and I hate to quote that odious toad, but he said something, and a lot of what Nigel Farage says actually has a kernel of truth in it, which I think is what makes him dangerous. It's what makes people connect with him, and what makes him dangerous. But anyway, he said people identify more as a leaver or a remainer than they do along party lines at the moment, and I think that's true.
Yeah, it is true. Well, the thing is, it's split on. It's split the political parties.
It has.
Labour are divided. The Tories are divided.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is the thing. I just feel like it's installed anarchy. Yeah, we are living in a state of anarchy in the UK. Yeah. Somebody should write a song about that. But, like, honestly, like, the prison systems are failing, the schools are failing, the NHS is failing. Like, all of these really big institutions are failing us. You know,
our roads are bloody failing.
The roads are failing.
They
Cuts to legal aid mean that normal people have no access to justice anymore, so anybody can do anything to you. And the political parties are divided. Yeah. And the thing is, though, I actually think Brexit is the cat before the horse, because we haven't had a stable government since 2010. No, because we've not been able to we have a first past the post system in the UK, which means basically the winner takes it all. Yeah. Whoever gets the most votes in the national election gets to form a government. But since 2010, the Tories didn't get enough votes to form a government, so they formed an alliance with the Lib Dems. And since then, they've just been shoking along, and then Theresa May got a slim majority in the next election, and then she lost it during this election she called to win all this power. But everybody it turns out everybody hates Theresa May. Who'd have thunk it?
So they're in a coalition. We keep forgetting they're in a coalition, because it's like a coalition of them plus like 9 DUPCs or something.
The Democratic Unionist Party, who are like the fundamentalists, Christians in Northern Ireland, and now Johnson's kicked everybody out, so he's removed the whip from all of his politicians, so there's no mandate. And you know what, if you have a general election tomorrow, you're gonna have the same problem. You're gonna have a shonky alliance with like Labour and maybe the SNP, but I don't know if the Lib Dems and Labour and SNP are going to work together.
No, they're not.
I just this is what I haven't talked about, and we're not really talking about feminism now, we're just talking about the state of the UK. But
I think if the UK keeps falling further and further into disarray, it's obviously going to impact women disproportionately, because this stuff always does.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's interesting that this was all, I mean, Brexit was inaugurated with the assassination of Jo Cox. Jo Cox is a British MP. She's very young. She's like, I think she'd only got in the last election, and one of her constituents came to her office and stabbed her to death, shouted Britain first, and since then a lot of this with the xenophobia and the racism that's been unleashed, there's also been a little bit of misogyny, you know.
Yeah, which was always there, but it's almost like people have carte blanche to
say it.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Okay, so here's my Brexit story. So, you know, I said I was in Budapest for the Brexit. I came back just as after we'd got the vote, like a couple of weeks after, and I was in London, and I was coming back on the coach. We were about to set off, and we were delayed a little bit, and this woman comes running on. She's like, I'm so sorry, and it was a black woman, and a couple of people were just like, fuck's sake, like, oh my god, and it was nothing racist or sexist was said, but the tone and a couple of people being very vocal and like looking around at all the other white people like, oh, what are they like, you know what I mean? And this was in London, and I felt so uncomfortable, and I thought, oh, this is different. This is Brexit Britain now. I can feel the difference here. This is not pleasant. So a lot of stuff like where it's not maybe explicitly mentioned, I could definitely feel it. And I think there has been a spike in hate crimes since the vote. And I know a lot of friends who said, you know, people have called me, you know, names that I've not been called since I was a kid, or, you know, I've never been said that, and now it happens all the time. And I think that there isn't a tinge to it. I think if you look at do you know who Carl Benjamin is?
I know that name.
Sargon of Arkand. He's a YouTuber. He's a man's rights activist, and he stood for UKIP. He stood for UKIP as a MEP candidate a little while ago. And he's famous for telling Jess Phillips, like, oh, I wouldn't even rape you.
Oh, yes, I do know. Yeah.
And like that's carte blanche now, you know. Gina Miller is a businesswoman who, private citizen. She took the government to court to say that you're not allowed to leave the EU without the say so from Parliament.
Oh yeah.
She's I think she's mixed race, or she's non-white woman. And again, I don't think a lot of this like overtly said, but you know, she does get a lot of abuse. You know, her kids have been called Mongols and stuff.
Oh my god.
And I don't know if this is like misogyny. You know, when you're a woman and you're black, like there's a very specific kind of
racist sexism.
You know. Like Diane Abbott, like, you know, I mean, I don't know, like, these things have always existed before. She got a lot of racial abuse before Brexit.
Yeah.
But it's just stirring it up, you know. Even Theresa May, you know, all the talk when they like, will stab her in the front, you know, it was so bad. And again, this is not just a right-wing thing. Like, a lot of left-wing men feel they can vent their fury at right-wing women. And Yvette Cooper actually stood up in Parliament and called it out. She's like, I know that she's my opposition, but this language is unacceptable. This way of speaking about this woman is unacceptable because this is misogyny. And, you know, this is, you know, I guess it's all part and parcel, isn't it? You don't, if you find somebody who's a racist, generally they don't have the best views on
women.
Yeah. Generally.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not to be... I don't know, is that bad? Like, to assume that a racist is sexist, is that sexist? I don't know.
It has been awful for women in politics and just in private citizens as well. And it's been awful, the case of, they've just like fucking messed everything up. They're applying for leave to remain if you're an EU citizen as well. And I believe it's been harder for women because women are more likely to be caregivers and less likely to have full-time jobs. And that's one of the things, like, for leave to remain, like your work status and stuff like that. Yeah. Women have just had like an awful time, even if they're married and got kids. And, yeah.
I mean, it's just a clusterfuck, isn't it? I don't know what we're going to do. What should we do? Should we stay or should we go? Should we have another vote?
I don't know though, because I feel like we can't have another vote but then the referendum was based on lies, but then people did vote. I think there'd be riots in the streets if we had another vote.
There's going to be riots in the streets anyway.
Yeah, because it like the nation is divided. It's 52-49. Like that is a 52-48. That is a nation literally divided.
Well, do you know what? I'm really looking forward to my time down in London because there's a few different demonstrations going to be happening concurrent with Extinction Rebellion.
Right.
I think there could just be I just think there could be a little mini riot, a little bit of anarchy, a little bit of storm. I genuinely like. There's going to be Brexit people down there, so you've got XR. There'll be loads of anarchist types there as well. Yeah. And like I say, I've always had my suspicions about XR. Like it's just going to cause havoc for the government, and is it going to teeter them over the edge? Like the police have been cut, and they're just having to do all this bullshit policing. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if they just turn around and be like to the parliamentarians and just like, no, you're on your own, mate. I'm not doing it. Like, you're not paying me, have you? I don't know. Like, and again, I don't think anarchy is going to unleash anything great for women, but
probably not. I'm just thinking about what you said just earlier about how we've not had a stable government since 2010, and I was thinking about this the other day, that I think, and the 2010 government arguably came about as a result of the 2008 crash, and I honestly think that so much of what's happening in the world, like, I think this is the end of the current way of doing things.
But there's no other way of doing things.
Well, and I don't mean like in an apocalyptic way, I just mean like societally, etc., etc. And I think we're gonna like historians in the future are going to trace it back to the 2008 financial crash, which destabilized so much, because since then, like, we've not had a stable government. The Arab Spring happened 5 years later, 2012, 2013.
Well, no, it was very soon afterwards,
We're leaving the EU, like ISIS. No, the Arab Spring was sooner, wasn't it? Because I was at university, and then we had ISIS forming a couple of years after, and then we're leaving the EU. I think that just like all these institutions, all these political institutions are just changing and crumbling, and I think they'll probably trace it back to the 2008 financial crash.
Oh, it definitely
which you can trace back to something else, which you could trace back to something else. We know that history doesn't have a start point and an end point.
But I think it's like the fall of the Soviet Empire. I think there's a lot of parallels with what happened in the crash. But the difference is when the crash, when Soviet Union fell, there was capitalism to come in and like an alternative system of government. But we don't have, and the response of politicians, especially the Tories, is this form of neoliberalism was failing, so we're going to do it more, harder,
faster,
and it's like,
stronger.
What are you doing to us? We know this doesn't work. And the people see through it now. I think that's it. It was like all this time you couldn't have any money, you can't have any money, and then banks need money, give them to them. It's like they privatise
capitalism for the poor and socialism for the rich.
They privatise the profits and then they socialise the losses. So it's not going to work for us. And I don't know, like,
that's one of the arguments from a lot of Marxist and socialist feminists, that you can, because the EU is a capitalist endeavour, you can never fully establish socialism in the EU. And I get that, but then socialism doesn't always work.
I don't know, like socialism. So I was speaking to a German woman actually during the fall of the Soviet Union in Germany. A lot of the East German women lost so many rights when the Soviets left.
I bet they did.
Their actual status in British and German law is terrible. And a lot of there's a lot of problems with the Soviet Union, but women's legal status was very vastly improved in those countries. Education systems were a lot better. So I don't think it's as black and white as that. Do you know what I mean? So no. Can we bring Putin? Putin, can you come back, please? Can we have a bit of socialism, please? Not too much.
That's the solution. Bring in Putin. You heard it here first.
That's what he wanted.
So a newspaper was pushed through my door called The Brexiteer, and it's the newspaper of the Brexit Party, issue number 3. And I've not read any of it, but I just thought it'd be quite fun to read some of it out. So there's a picture of a smiling Nigel Farage on the front, holding a placard that says Brexit Party change politics for good, and the headline is, "We are ready for a Brexit general election. UK must leave by October 31st. So there's a couple of different sections here. We won't read all of it. So on page 6, you can find out why no deal is the best deal, which is just insane.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the best deal. It sounds like in mental. It sounds
like we're going to have to deal with the EU at some point, because we need to trade with them. We can't just not trade with them. So it's whether we do a deal when we're still in the EU or whether we do a deal once we leave.
Just no deal. Let's just fuck shit up. I don't care. Let's just
do
it.
Even if we leave with no deal, we'll still need to
we still have to get a deal
in the future.
It's like, no, we're just going to ignore you. Hang on. Julie Birchall's got a column.
Page 8, Julie Birchall.
What's our Julie saying?
Brexit is a people's revolt. So hang on. I won't read all of it, but let's see that. And then there's like an agony aunt bit that I really want to read as well. So, no deal is the best for Britain. Right, Julie Birchall.
What's she saying?
Boris Johnson's a toff, but Brexit is a people's revolt. Brexiteers are now part of a global community of popular protests that stretches from Paris to Hong Kong. I mean, she's not wrong. Like, people are protesting and
I feel like the rhetoric around the people versus this, it's just one group of elitists versus another group of elitists.
Yeah, true. Because with the elitists, it's not really going to affect them majorly whether they leave or remain, is it?
No.
Because they'll still be fine. At the start of the year, stuck in the slough of despond with Mrs. May or May not, I wondered why I had been so naive as to believe that the long arm of the EU superstate would ever let us leave. So that's what I'll leave this with you if you want to read it. And
yes, please.
I also wanted to read a little bit of... So there is Ask Anne. Anne Widdecombe has an agony aunt column. Ask Anne. Widders soothes the nation's agonies. So I won't be able to read all
right,
of them.
come on, let me see what she says. I'm going to give some... We're good at this, aren't we?
Okay. So she says, Dear Anne... Oh, no, somebody's written in. Dear Anne, 3 years ago, in June 2016, I gave my heart with a big X, believing the promise that we could leave with a capital L, the past behind and start an independent life together. Now it seems as if I was lied to, like millions of others. The broken promises make me feel as if I really don't count, that my exes are worthless. How can I ever make such a commitment again? So Anna's said, how I sympathise. I also followed my heart in 2016. I won't do the American voice.
No.
I was made so miserable that I ended my retirement. However, the crunch is coming and we mustn't lose our nerve now. What would have happened if Churchill had just given up at Dunkirk? Can you believe this rhetoric? Be strong and resolute and KBO. Freedom beckons.
Freedom. What the hell are you talking about?
Someone else is frightened of the future. The news is all scary stories about how we'll soon run out of food and drugs.
Turn it off.
And someone else has said, when I met Jeremy, a young idealist, Spec Corbyn, I think, who wanted to change the world, I worshipped the ground he bicycled on. But as we've grown older, Jeremy's changed. He's turned his back on his old ordinary friends and fallen in with a trendy, wealthy North London crowd. See, Jeremy Corbyn's an interesting one because he definitely wants to leave, but most of his voter base want to remain. But yeah, anyway, we could literally talk about this for hours, but I think
I'm gonna wrap it up.
We've Brexited enough.
I don't know, everyone's
we don't have the answers. We've not given you any solutions.
There is no answer. There's just more of the same doom.
But yeah, maybe be a bit kinder to each other. But if you're a racist twat, obviously don't do that. But just be a bit kinder to each other and try and, help out. I was speaking to a judge at my mate's wedding on the Saturday, and he was like, there are loads and loads of good reasons to leave, he says, but I don't think we can unpick 40 years of legislation because our legislation is so entwined with the EU. I thought that was interesting. But we were talking about how we just all need to be a bit kinder to each other and, assume that individuals are acting in good faith and assume that the politicians are not acting. No,
Never trust a politician. Rule of thumb.
See, I think that some of them are like dedicated civil servants, but I wonder if they just get corrupted by the system. I don't know.
I think they're born corrupt. Do you know something like 80% of all politicians are actually narcissists and psychopaths and sociopaths?
I can believe that. But yeah.
My ex was, his mum was like a politician, and he told me, never trust a politician. And I was like, I hated his mum. That should have been a red flag. But I was like, really?
Is this the one that had royal connections? You might have told me about him.
Yeah,
before.
his mum married the president of Malawi.
Oh, I was trying to be like subtle so that people wouldn't like go and Google it. But yeah,
yeah, no, that's like my claim to fame. But this is what he told me about his mother. And I thought, it does sound a bit like you hate your mum because she sounds like pretty cool. Like he come back once drunk when he was really drunk, and he came back and she called the police on him and he spent a night in the jail cell. I was like.
You're like, fit.
I don't know, I just thought, I know what he's like, he is a bit of an ass, and I was like, serves you right, Brian. Yeah, but no, he said never trust a politician. And like Jeremy Corbyn, I trusted, I loved him. What's she called? Angela Rayner, I loved her.
Yeah.
Oh, she ruined it. So like, honestly, don't trust politicians.
And that's the advice we'll leave you with. Yeah. What do we have coming up? Anything exciting? Really just the 30th of November, isn't it? Oh, no, there is a Rock Against Sexism event on the 19th of October, Saturday, the 19th of October, put on by the Merry Quail Club. All their events are free, I believe. I think it's on at 2, but I'll check. It's at the Friends Meeting House in Manchester, and Lucy Toothpaste is speaking, and it's about the Rock Against Sexism movement in the punk movement. I'm going because I think it'll be absolutely awesome. And Philia is on.
No, we can't go. I can't go to that event because I'm off to Philia.
I'm going to Philia on the Sunday.
Oh, are you coming for the day?
On the Saturday, because my mate's got like a party as well. So on the Saturday, I'm going to go to Rock Against Sexism and to my mate's party.
Well, I'm going to go and do some feminising.
I'll see you on Sunday. Yeah.
If I'm not in jail.
But yeah. So we've come to the end bit, which is the feminist top trump card game. So who do we have this time?
So we have Carrie Chapman Cat.
And who was Carrie Chapman Cat?
Carrie Chapman. This is why I don't like to read this outright. American, 1859 to 1947. What Elizabeth Cady Stanton began in Seneca Falls, New York in 1848 with women's demand for
I think we've had that card before, actually.
We have. Carrie Cat competed in 1920 when ratification of the 19th Amendment to the US Constitution was finally achieved. As Susan B. Anthony's hand-picked successor to lead the national suffrage movement, Cat engineered the final push to victory with equal measure of organisational and tactical brilliance, doggedness and velvety diplomacy. In 1913, Kat took charge of the state suffrage movement in New York. Following 2 intensive campaigns, the movement secured, in 1917, women's right to vote in the state elections. In her second term as president of the National American Women's Suffrage Association, Kat developed a comprehensive plan for achieving national women's suffrage via constitutional amendments, and her relentless attention to every aspect of its execution in Congress and the states was widely credited in the 1920 victory. Having foreseen it, Kat also had begun laying the groundwork a year earlier for the educational organisation established as the League of Women Voters.
Cool lady.
Cool. I like this card game, but they're all very American, and I want some British ones.
Maybe we should
do
make
some
our
homework.
own merch.
Oh my gosh, yes, mate!
Watch this space.
No, I actually don't joke. I am a geek. I actually make games for fun.
Okay.
I can make it. We can do this.
Okay.
We can do this.
All right. Yeah. Watch this space.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
Merch this, right?
Yeah. Any other topics you want us to cover? Let us know on Facebook, Insta. You can tweet me, Sobering Maid.
mmpublications@gmail.com.
Send us
That's
an
where you can
email.
find us.
And yeah, we will see you next time for more Radfem analysis that no one wants or asks for.
Bye.